When dealing with a falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
That? Yeah, it's for people with smaller heads than yours. All right. Jesus. Well, that's okay. I mean, it's okay that you take some time and actually.
I'm not going to read all of that. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Cat went.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, we're getting to the good part.
Just wait. The climax is coming soon. All right. Hi, and welcome to the Brainstorm Rectable, the Brainstorm production that covers news and current events from the past month with a mind towards critical thinking and progressive values. I'm Cory, and my panel tonight are Destin.
Table is wrecked. It's a wrecked table.
And Lisa.
I forgot my knitting.
Like a junkie over here.
It'll be Cory, an idiot and a junkie. Why we don't have listeners? Reason 437.
We are in Lisa's apartment, and we're recording on April 12th, 2019.
Not enough of you give us money.
Because, well, no, because our studio guy is sick. He's got a good excuse. If you want to contact the show, you can do it by emailing us at mail@brainstormblog.net. And if you want to support the show, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast.
Why does our email address have to be so gendered?
Mail?
It's actually not a bad point, Cory.
No, it is. It's a bad point.
Is it?
It's a very bad point.
Oh.
You are both bad people. All right.
Want to start over?
No.
That was gold.
We're rolling.
That was gold.
We're rolling through this crap.
You need to get home to your son.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get fired.
You can't get fired.
Right?
You don't
You
get
put
paid.
in so much. Oh my God.
All right. Scientific American. Atheism is inconsistent with the scientific method, prize-winning physicist says.
What kind of prize?
The 2019 Templeton Prize. The Templeton Prize, valued under just $1.5 million, is awarded from the John Templeton Foundation, recognizes an individual who has made an exceptional contribution to affirming life's spiritual dimension.
On what
so
criteria?
It's not a physics reward. And its past recipients include luminaries such as Sir Martin Rees, Freeman Dyson, and religious or political leaders such as Mother Teresa, Desmond Tutu, and the Dalai Lama.
Fuck Mother Teresa.
So
the first two were real physicists. Good
Right.
ones. I don't know if they're good
who
people.
apparently were
very,
religious or spiritual in some
I don't
way.
know, but they're very prolific. Very important physicists, actually. Not
Mother
even
Teresa was a horrible human being.
Yes.
What do we think of the Dalai Lama?
Neutral?
Okay. I'll go with that.
He's really a do-nothing.
Okay.
He existed.
But I want to explore this idea a little bit. And I talked to our past guest Jonathan Maloney from Intelligent Speculation about the idea that atheism isn't scientific or isn't what did he say? Is inconsistent with the scientific method.
I don't even understand how that could be a thing. It doesn't.
Yeah, like
lacking a belief in something can't be consistent or inconsistent.
I disagree.
With-
I disagree. Like, I lack a belief in flat earthism, and that's based in science.
Based on the fact that you understand that the Earth is I was going to say a sphere, but it's not spherical. No, belief is a stupid fucking word anyway.
I think that often, I mean, how...
I know, right? It's
I'm actually at a loss in a sense, because it's like, how do you explain to somebody who thinks that you ought to believe in something even without evidence, or that not believing in something without evidence doesn't comport with science?
I don't know. What's his argument?
Well, he says he believes in the way science works, or he's very humble. I'm not even sure. He considers himself an agnostic.
Sometimes you get people who are like, well, you can't be 100% certain there is no God. There is technically a very small chance.
Right.
So you get those people. But I mean, I would argue that the type of atheist that I am, like, you would not be a true atheist if you said, no, there's literally zero chance that there's a God, right? Because you have to allow for that possibility. But you're given the evidence that exists, you're pretty confident in saying, no,
right.
You know what I mean? So
that seems...
Modern atheism, all it's saying is, based on available evidence, God doesn't exist.
that is the most likely explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on current evidence. That's all you have to say.
Here's his argument. He says, the question is, why are you against atheism? And he says, I honestly think atheism is inconsistent with the scientific method. What I mean by that is, what is atheism? It's a statement, a categorical statement that expresses belief in non-belief. Oh. That's not true. I don't believe even though I have no evidence for or against. Simply, I don't believe.
There's lots of evidence, but it's not definitive. So I think that maybe the key word there is categorical, right? Is he's saying that atheists think that there is definitely no God without any chance, whereas basically any true atheist in my book would immediately admit that they were wrong if evidence to the contrary came out, like sufficient evidence that there is a God came out.
It's not that we believe there isn't a God. It's we haven't been shown any evidence that there is.
It's a statement that expresses belief in non-belief. I don't believe, even though I have no evidence for or against. I simply I don't believe. Well, but that's what you're supposed to do when you don't have any evidence for or against. Belief requires a positive evidence, right? Am I wrong?
You're not.
No, I get what you're saying.
He says,
I was trying to think of a counterexample. Sorry, it's just my way.
He says, it's a declaration, but in science, we don't really do declarations. We say, you can have a hypothesis. You have to have some evidence against or for that. And so an agnostic would say, look, I have no evidence for God or any kind of God. So an agnostic would acknowledge no right to make a final statement about something he or she doesn't know about. But that's not believing. That's what not believing means, right?
I would say that most atheists are actually just like extreme agnostics, I guess, by this definition. Like, yeah,
by this definition.
But at some point, can you not just say like, well, I mean, really, chances of a burning bush really appearing and actually showing us that this is really truly true is not
enough pio.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we change the word atheist for skeptic, because that's what atheists are.
Generally.
Yeah. Well, based on our interpretation of atheism, it's part of being a skeptic.
I agree.
Right.
But I mean,
it's that view of religion. It's a skeptical view on God. So you don't believe in being a skeptic. You only accept things as true if you're given evidence of it. Belief doesn't come into play. So that's my problem with it. Like, that's again, like I just said, belief is a stupid fucking word. Yeah, belief is meaningless.
I'm still, I don't know. This whole, it's almost not the way the word that we use the word, right?
I feel like it's possible to be an atheist for non-skeptical reasons, just because you're just like, no, I just refuse. I just won't. Like, it's an unfounded, irrational belief you have. You're not actually based on anything. You haven't thought it through. Like, it's possible.
For sure.
And so I guess, but I don't really tend to classify atheists that way. I tend to classify them as like people who are not believing this because they've thought it through and they've recognized there's no evidence. They're coming at it from an evidence-based, science-based, rational-based perspective. That's my assumption. It may not be true for everyone, but okay.
Undoubtedly, it's probably not true for everyone, right?
But for the most part.
But for, most of the people that in my experience I've encountered, that's...
Yeah, well, and this guy is making the broad sweeping statement that atheists.
Yeah. I do actually plan on, like, Jonathan Maloney from Intelligent Speculation, he kind of agreed with this guy. So I do plan on talking to him about this in the future and kind of trying to find where he's coming from, because I'm having a lot of trouble actually understanding this point and how it fits with the way that I use the word atheism. But moving on.
If you insist.
The Mueller Report. I guess by now it's all old news. But
well, by the time you release the episode, they're supposed to be releasing a redacted version of the full report in the next week. So
that would be nice.
Well, a redacted version may or may not be nice.
Yeah, and to Congress too, right? Like,
I think it might even. They might even said Barry might even said he was going to release it publicly. No.
I'm not sure.
Am I wrong?
It was voted unanimously in favor for it to be released publicly, so it has to be released publicly. Also, on that, speaking about that, I know this is going off book a bit, which isn't our way of doing things at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation that Trump won't be able to run 2020.
I've not heard this. Why?
Because he still hasn't released his tax information.
Interesting.
And legally, he has to be president.
Why?
It's in the Constitution that
no, there's no requirement for presidents to release their tax returns. Definitely not. Now, I believe that Congress has, like the House of Reps,
congressional can do it. Yeah,
has requested it. So if he has refused to, and he has said that he will not.
Yeah, they can subpoena them.
So I believe so. If they do that and he doesn't do it, is it like if you don't pay your child support, you don't get your driver's license? If you don't obey the subpoena, you can't now run for president. Right. I don't know, but
yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
But how do you? I mean, I guess I'm far from an expert on this stuff, so it's
hard to talk about it.
Yeah. It makes me seem like it sounds really fishy. If Congress can subpoena things and they have the power to kind of force people to give over documents and testify in front of them.
Yeah. So
how can he just refuse to hand over his tax returns?
Legally, he can't. But in effect, how are they going to make him? Right? Like, if he doesn't hand them over, I wonder if they can go to the IRS and say, I was going to say CRA, but then I was going to say IRA. But anyways, no. But if...
the IRA, though. They're up for pretty much anything usually.
Yeah. But anyways, so...
They'll do a thing.
Yeah. I wonder if they could go to the IRS and get it directly from them. I don't know. But... yeah, he's certainly refused. I don't know. The whole thing is, I don't know. I feel like some of the wind has been taken out of the sails of the Democrats here, because the Barr summary of, which he's saying is not a summary of the Mueller report, is so not what we were thinking was going to be there.
Right.
So I think a lot of but then now everyone's harping on, oh, well, we just need to see the full report. And it's like, I feel like the damage has already been done, especially with people who are kind of on the fence. Like, you know, Barr said, oh, there's no collusion. And then Trump just harped on that. And it's going to be hard. Like, I mean, it may be that when you get the report that it's nuanced and actually Barr's interpretation was way out, you know, right. But I think it's already been set. Like, in people's
the narrative
minds,
is
like,
already, yeah. I
mean, I was talking to you at supper that I really like, the Stay Tuned with Preet podcast and his theory, like whatever, when the Mueller report was first released and Barr put out his summary, was that if you look carefully at the wording, it may be that because famously Mueller said, well, there was no collusion with Russia, but I declined to make a judgment on whether, or to make a call on whether Donald Trump obstructed justice.
Right.
Now, Preet Bharara said if you looked at that, carefully, you thought about it carefully, actually what he may have meant was that he doesn't feel it's his role to do that with respect to the president, especially because the Department of Justice has said that you can't indict a sitting president.
Right.
So that's the policy of the organization he works for. Maybe he meant for Congress to look at his report and make that decision. And maybe Barr just going ahead and like saying, okay, no, I've decided if Mueller won't make the call, I will, case closed, problem solved, like, which is very handy politically for Donald Trump, but that may not have been what Mueller intended. And we do know that there were summaries written by the Mueller team, that they intended for Barr to be able to release, that Barr chose not to release.
Right. Yeah.
So that's sort of,
and
that's very fishy. The thing is, this is fishy to the rest of us, but it's like, it's fishy in a way that you can see that the other side will just be like, you lost, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you just feel it. Like, and that makes it more frustrating. It's like watching,
it's just all sour grapes, right?
Well, it's like watching, House of Cards and being like, oh, and then you can see the Underwood's detractors being like, no, he pushed her off the, blah, blah, blah. No, oh yeah, ma. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, no, it really happened. Like, you just feel yourself getting, sorry.
Back to the constitutional stuff. Okay. Constitutionally, you're allowed, you can demand to see the taxes.
Okay.
Doesn't mean he has to produce them. So that's where I was. So
I don't know if Congress subpoenas them though.
So here's how they're working around it. Donald Trump's name will not appear on voting ballots in Washington state if the president fails to release his tax returns ahead of the 2020 election. Lawmakers in the Washington state Senate approved major legislation this week that would legally require all presidential candidates to release the last 5 years of their personal tax returns.
Okay. So they're doing this on a state level.
Interesting. State level can definitely do it. New Jersey's also joined in.
Interesting.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Except now the Republican Party is saying, well, this is bad going forward to make this now a forced thing that we have to do.
Except everybody's going to do it.
They've been doing it for 40 years.
If anybody's honest, they're going to do it.
It's been the norm, right? Like, it's been the norm. I think it was Richard Nixon was the first to show that, and it actually ended up biting him in the butt politically, I believe, a little bit. But like, it's just been a way, it's been the norm. And the thing is that Trump has been so good at being like, oh, what? I have to do this? Wait, you say there's no actual rule against it? Oh, then I'm not doing it, right? Like, that's what but things that everyone has, like.
You got to think America's big on their freedom, though. And that's, to them, this is to the Republican mind, not ours. Yeah. That it's stepping on their freedoms.
Well, that's what they think.
Okay, but norms are super important. Like, okay, why don't we run around this city murdering each other? Why don't we do it? Because we have think about how many people could be in the police force. How many people could possibly be? I don't know. Is it like 1,000 people? Do we have 1,000 cops in the city? I don't know. But that wouldn't be enough cops to stop. If everyone in the city decided to go on a murderous rampage, it wouldn't be enough to stop everyone. Right. But we don't do it because there's a cultural norm that we don't do this. And we've all accepted and agreed that no, we don't. No, it's just not a thing. I'm not physically forced from stopping to kill people. Most people just stop themselves from killing people.
I don't stop myself from killing people. I don't have the impulse. There's no cultural norm involved. Well, it's not part of
that. Impulse does come from somewhere, though.
You don't think if you were raised in a different culture that might have been a different case? If you were raised by Khal Drogo?
That's an instilled cultural thing.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. If we had it instilled, then it would be a normal cultural thing. The fact that it's not instilled means it's not a normal cultural thing. So it's not a cultural impetus on us to go murder people. It's
norm.
I find that example fallacious.
Why?
Because there's nothing in us that makes us want to just go randomly kill everybody. Like it's not the law or the fact that it's not normal that's stopping us from killing people. It's just not something that we think about doing.
You might be wrong. I think a lot of people would kill people if it was the environment they were raised in.
I don't think everybody would go on a murdering spree if it was.
Have you not watched Game of Thrones? I feel like you're not paying attention. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe that example doesn't speak to you, but the point is that Donald Trump takes anything that's not a hard and fast rule and he ignores it. And even things that are hard and fast rules, he doesn't really think that they apply to him. So if Congress subpoenas his tax returns, he'll figure out a way to get, because he doesn't actually, because in his whatever shriveled black heart, he cannot fathom that this is something he's actually responsible for.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I think.
No, that's exactly right. If it isn't a law, then he doesn't care. And if it is a law, then
he
breaks it
as much as I
anyways.
hate Trump,
that's right.
if it's not a law, it's not a law.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't think that there's value to the norms of political office, to the way things are done?
No, because they have to change.
Sometimes things have to change for good reason.
Things have to be fluid. If they're law, then there's a reason for it to be law. If it's just something that's normally accepted, then it...
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for norms that, people go through because it is a good idea, and then it never bothers to become a law because it's just a good idea and everybody just kind of accepts it until you run into somebody who doesn't accept it.
Like, that's why we have all fine print everywhere, right? Because it's just like some idiot decided that, like...
Yeah. Well, I can't just...
See, we say in the last 40 years, right? That's 7 presidents out of 54.
So it's technically not that long.
No.
Yeah, but
it's a very recent thing.
There's clearly a reason, because it's not like he gives a good reason, like that. No, he's not like he's saying, no, that's my private shit. I don't think it should be released. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, I totally would release my tax returns, but I've been under audit by the IRS for the last 6 years. That's why I can't.
See, and
it's so clearly bullshit.
That's
bullshit.
The problem. And he's giving a shitty... So if he was giving a good reason, it'd be okay.
There's also no rule that the president of the United States has to tell the truth.
Which way is it? You said it's bad because it's a lie.
If there's a good reason.
He's not like he's even giving a good principled reason for not releasing his tax returns.
If you think that it's normal and should be done, then there can't be a good reason not to do it.
There can. Many normal and things that should be done have exceptions if there's a good reason.
And I agree that norms can be subject to change if there's a good reason. But he doesn't have... He's not taking a principled stand for that. It's just, he's just selfish. He's clearly just selfish.
I agree. But if somebody said, hey, we want to see your tax return, I'm just going to be like, no.
Right, because you would say it's private. That would be a principled stand.
Not even because it's private, because I don't want to show it to somebody.
Sure. Or because I don't.
Not specifically because it's private, because I just, no.
And and there is a difference though, right?
But because you're not in public office.
Yes.
And that's still different than saying,
what I'm saying is, you guys are both saying that they should show them because it's normal. Well, but you're also agreeing that if somebody says, no, I don't want to, that's a good reason.
No, I don't want to isn't a good reason. No, I don't want to because X reason may be a good reason. Because you do things for reasons. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad.
Yeah, but if I'm not doing something.
Not doing something is the same as doing something.
I don't even think I'd have a problem if he did it like to say, you know what? I just think it's not a good practice. I don't agree with it. I'm not doing it. Even that I could respect more than bullshit. I mean, like, look, how about let's get away from tax returns. The norm of presidents shouldn't lie. I don't think there's a law anywhere that says that presidents shouldn't lie continuously to the public in every sentence that they utter. Demonstrably, that's a norm that presidents don't do that.
That's what they asked for, and that's what they elected.
It is what they clearly elected.
Yep. That's true.
It was known before the election.
It was. It's not like fucking Trump became a surprise once he got elected.
Well, do you remember when he first became elected and everyone's like, wow, this is stupid. No, they said, he was very ostentatious during the campaign, but he's going to dial it back. He's going to rein it in.
He hasn't stopped campaigning.
Right. No, but that's, people actually thought, maybe he'll just kind of dial it back.
But that is not actually an argument against the fact that his lying is wrong, right? Like he's still violating our societal expectations that somebody who's in that kind of position of power,
America's, not ours. Well,
ours too. He's violating our expectations as well. We just have no ability to do anything about it. But the norm is still a reasonable expectation. Still a reasonable norm, and it's still societally, like, it's still a violation, and it's still ethically wrong
that part
for him to do.
I completely disagree, only because the societal norm was what was elected on.
Well, no, it wasn't.
They elected him on him, and he was lying the whole way through the campaign.
That depends on how, like, because now you got to nitpick, like, well, who elected him? Well, less than 50% of the voters elected him, so society still had a higher expectation, like we have certain norms, and it's okay to think that it's wrong for him to break those. And I feel the same way about the tax returns.
I find it interesting to have this debate at all because the smart people that I like listening to all say, well, one of the big problems with Trump is that he violates norms. And I just, like, I guess it's just instinctual for me to just be like, yeah, that's really bad. Like, that's like, it bothers me that he does this, and I think that it's terrible. But then to have you ask me, well, what's so wrong with violating norms? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's actually hard for me to express. And I do agree that there's going to be times where some norms should be violated. Some rules are made to be,
probably in every presidency.
Well, and I mean, there's some norms that are
Obama
pretty
wore
arbitrary,
a tan
right?
suit.
Yeah, who cares, right?
No, but I mean, like, what norms did he violate?
I didn't say he did. I'm saying I'm sure it happened in every presidency. I don't know.
Well, since he was a president, what you just said means that he violated a norm. But
yeah, I said probably. I didn't say I looked into
like it would have for something to be relevant. Like, it would have to be something that generally people would know about. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I said, if he did something minor and who cares? Like it. But this is Trump violating long-standing, well-accepted.
Not long-standing.
I would say
it really depends on how you look at it.
In the term of how many presidents there's been since the Constitution was
in the history of the universe, in the 14.7 billion
since
years.
the last time the Constitution was eroded.
But
what now?
7 or 8 presidents or 40 years, that is an established norm that people expect. And
now I'm really interested just to know what other norms have been expected of the president and see how many of them are just
But what about the truth telling? No, that's a norm.
They're politicians. Nobody expects politicians to tell the truth.
How about the norm of when your career advisors in the White House advise you not to give security clearance to certain individuals? The norm is to follow that advice because they're experts in that. But he disregarded that advice and gave security clearance to his relatives. That's a norm that it's so preposterous. Nobody ever thought to write a law about it. Like it's like I said, Donald Trump is the fine print.
I'm sure there are rules or laws against giving those people security clearance.
In fact, Donald Trump can override them. He has the ability, which is what he did. Yeah. So that's what happened. But it is against a norm to do that. And the reason is because most presidents are smart enough to realize that you should pay attention to these people because otherwise you could be in a whole shitload of trouble. I mean, I don't know. I'm so speechless about this guy. Like, it's just,
I mean,
again, I'm on the same side with you guys about the taxes. I think you should show them.
I'm on board with undermining societal norms in a lot of ways. The
only way you get societal change.
That's right.
Like, I mean, like, if look at 20 years ago, it would not be the norm to accept a trans person.
Right.
Who, at my work 6 months ago, somebody sent around an email, said, hey, I'm no longer female name. I'm now male name. I know this might be kind of strange for you, but this is, and I prefer to go by he and not she. And that's how it's going to be. And everyone's like, all right. And it's Saskatchewan, and everyone's like, cool. And everyone's nice to this person and respects that as much as possible. There's a few slip ups. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to. I'm going to call you by your male name. And would that have been the case 25, 30 years ago? I don't know. It probably would have been a lot more awkward, right? So there's a norm that's changed. That's great. So some norms changing is good. It's like, it's not saying that nothing should ever change, but there should be a reason, like, people's basic human dignity in that case. You know what I mean? But
yeah, no, that's right. And that's a good reason to change a societal norm.
Yes.
So, I mean, these things evolve, right? But a president who has that much power, it seems reasonable to expect, and maybe they should have made it a law.
I feel like he's going to be the fine print president, right? He's going to be the president that they are going to write laws in the future to protect against.
Right.
Because you're going to have to
assuming the country survives this. Yeah. I've been listening to the It Could Happen Here podcast.
Okay.
And it's
terrifying.
Yeah.
What's it about?
It's about the next American Civil War, by and large, and different scenarios upon which it could start. And it's only on to episode 3, and it is a scary, scary idea.
Depending who's in charge, it can last a couple hours. Or it could last years.
Well, the guy who does it, An American Civil War.
In the
Oh, the war itself. I thought you were talking about a podcast. I'm like, that's a long podcast.
The guy who does the podcast, he's an investigative journalist, and he's been in various places that have had uprisings of civilians against the government and different situations in that case, and both left wing and right wing types of insurgents and whatnot. And so it's very well informed and very interesting. And
the States is very unique in that situation, though, right? Because they're the only military in the world, them and probably Russia, with the ability to turn the United States into a pile of glass, right? Or with the enough clout to put boots on the ground and have put down an uprising.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's the only country in the world where the government suggests people arm themselves against their own government.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guns. And a lot of different kinds of guns.
Okay, but the things that the average civilian is armed with is not enough to take on the American military.
Oh, nothing that any of the
But that's the interesting thing, right? Is because insurgents, like people who hunker down in like hidden
hospitals,
hidden places, and like they set hidden bombs, and like they can really do
terrorist style or guerrilla style rather than
guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Vietnam, look at Iraq, like this stuff, it's effective.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
No. And their biggest weapon is Larry the Cable Guy. Because you just assume that every one of those people with guns is a really ridiculously stupid redneck.
Right. Yeah.
They're not.
Well, and many of them are ex-military.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that, like these people who are so pro-militia, pro-gun tend to actually support the military pretty strongly, as far as I know. Like, it's actually...
Yeah, there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in the States that don't make any sense.
There's a lot... It's actually... I'm more and more discovering that there's a large segment of the left that is ex-military and also likes being armed and is concerned about protecting themselves from an overreaching government. It's very...
Well, that's when you go far enough left, you get libertarian.
I mean...
There are left-leaning libertarians.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of what anarchism is, right?
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's kind of what anarchism is, right? It's a stateless society where we all cooperate and take care of each other.
Yeah. So yeah, and I still view it in the dystopian kind of way.
So, the next story. We're chewing up our time here.
Sorry.
No, that's all right, dude. We don't have to cover everything. This is from the New York Times. The NRA opposes new domestic abuse legislation.
Fake news.
The National Rifle Association, the nation's largest gun lobby, has settled on its next target on Capitol Hill, blocking Congress from reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, a 1994 law that assists victims of domestic and sexual violence. The bill includes a new provision which is aimed at curbing sexual violence by expanding law enforcement's ability to strip domestic abusers of their guns, which is, I mean, there is a quite a established link between domestic abuse and shooter and murder and mass shooters even. So the NRA blocking this seems like uncool to me.
I think there's a lot of suspicion, especially among male-dominated lobby groups, that women just make up this shit, right? Like they do it to get back at somebody, or they do it, because they're, they've been cheating on them, and now this is the best way to like get out of this relationship. And I'm just, there's like that sort of suspicion of women that way. But I mean, undeniably, it is true that if you're a young woman, like I think that the most likely way for you to die is actually in the hands of violently by a partner, like, or the second most common way to, through car accidents or whatever. Like it's like it's
ridiculously high.
It's very likely. And if you are in a situation with domestic violence, obviously even higher. Like it's very common for women to be killed by their intimate partners. Very, very
for sure.
Scarily common.
And I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's not a bad idea to not have guns in the hands of abusers, but...
Well, I mean, if you think about something escalating beyond what you want it to escalate, I mean, geez.
A gun really makes it really, really easy to escalate too far. Yeah.
If you're keeping your guns secured properly, it's a very poor and inconvenient way.
Right. Yeah. If you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Really?
Yeah, because your ammunition has to be locked in one place. Your guns have to be locked in a separate place. You have to be really mad, unlock two different things, load a weapon. If you're that impassioned, you're probably just going to stab the person or punch them to death.
Maybe, but
not that I'm agreeing with the NRA, just to get that out there. But
I don't know if I agree with you.
I'm sure if you found,
I feel like sometimes it's actually quite thought out. Like it's not like just in the heat of the moment. It's she's moved out. I'm pissed off about this. I'm going to find out where she lives, and it's like a day or two of thinking about it. And I think it's intentional. I think that's often what happens.
Yeah,
and I think
that's when it becomes premeditated. That's not an act of passion anymore. That's cold-blooded.
People can tell themselves a story that keeps them angry for several days.
Sure, but then it's
you're actually, when you leave a domestic violence situation, you're actually at the highest risk for the first 6 weeks after you leave. Yeah. So it's not like necessarily, that's actually when you're at the highest risk. Even being in the situation, your risk is actually lower than the first 6 weeks. That's a long period of time. And stabbing someone to death is messy.
It's really personal.
Well, domestic violence, I would argue is very personal, but
it's if you're going to kill somebody, I'm sure that shooting them is a lot easier than strangling, beating them to death, stabbing them.
Here's some stats, I guess. Roughly half of all female homicide victims are killed by what experts call intimate partners, meaning current or former spouses or dating partners. About half of intimate partner homicides involve dating relationships. The boyfriend loophole provision is a refocus on should we be just looking for domestic partners or should we be looking more broadly at intimate partners? So Studies also show that domestic abusers with guns inflict a disproportionate amount of violence on their partners and that the victims are overwhelmingly female. Abused women are 5 times more likely to be killed by their abuser if the abuser owns a firearm, according to the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence.
So people that own guns are more likely to be violent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And kill people.
Well,
and kill their
that
partners.
may or may necessarily be true. That may just be.
Well, that's what
I don't know what the correlation or causation is here. There's 2 ways to look at it. You tend to be more violent, so you own guns, or you own guns, and then it tends to escalate into
more violent
death
situations.
level violence, right?
It doesn't matter. The end result is people that own guns are more likely to be violent.
I would argue that it does matter to find out what causes things. I don't think this data tells us, but it is useful to know what's causal of the other thing.
That's it. Roughly 3/4 of all intimate partner murder victims were also victims of stalking by their partners.
Of course they were.
I don't know how the NRA can justify their position.
I mean, even the SAS party here in Saskatchewan, very conservative group, recently came up with some better laws for victims of domestic violence here in this province. So,
Except they're trying to rescind them already.
Have they?
So there's some groups that want to.
Well, the thing is, generally speaking, though, politically, who is for domestic violence, right? It does seem like it should be a bipartisan issue. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it should be.
There was an article I read, and I can't remember who wrote it or where I saw it, but it's.
Oh man, dude. That's the best beginning of any story.
I'm sure if you.
I read a thing. I don't know where it was or what it said.
I think the website said Breitbart.
You can actually probably Google it by the title. And it's actually titled "Why I Don't Care About School Shootings and Neither Should You."
Oh,
because it's like the soup. It's like the statistically less likely thing to happen. Is that why?
It's a straight stats thing. Yeah.
Because I think the number one reason people are murdered in the States is gangs related stuff, but the second one is domestic violence, I believe. And I think the numbers are similar in Canada.
Well, and the reason why he says that I don't care and neither should you is apparently school shootings en masse are down
It's a Reddit post.
Was it a Reddit post? Thank you for finding it.
Yeah.
School shootings are down a huge percentage.
Right.
Year over year over year. And it's just because of media that it's even sensationalized at all, or it's even in news.
1,153. That's how many people have been killed in school shootings since 1965, as per the Washington Post. This averages out to approximately 23 deaths per year.
What does the graph look like? How many people per year die? That's my
23 deaths per year.
It's an average. I'm wondering, how does that number per year change, like over time?
Right. Let's see what he says.
Sorry, but I'm just wondering, did it go up and then I feel like it peaked in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like that was my perspective of it, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's just because of media.
Has it been pretty constant?
I think it used to be higher.
People always say, this whole school shooting thing was never a thing until Columbine, but was that
not a thing because we didn't have internet?
We didn't have internet in Columbine either. It was like 1997 or 8.
Internet 97.
But it wasn't like a mass way that everyone learned about shit happening. Everyone watched that on the news.
No, but it was easier for news agencies and stuff to get information back and forth to each other. If you're in the field, you can just plug into the internet and send everything back to head office. So
I think they sent that shit that way back then. It was just like constant news footage from this. Like it could it not be like maybe more like the 24-hour cable news cycle or something, like 24-hour news channels, like something, because school shootings are made for that, right? Because you kind of watch with bated breath, like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? Like, oh no, like that's kind of how. Yeah, I remember watching when Columbine happened. I remember watching TV for hours, just watching, and then they'd talk to sad students, and then they'd talk to a sad parent, and then you get some other tiny sliver of news and update, and then you'd find out, it was just.
If you're measuring mass shootings, there actually have been more in 2016, 2015, 2018, up until present than there were in previous decades. Like, just looking at this graph they have on the Washington Post.
The States?
Yes. Like you can kind of see, I mean, obviously the listener can't, but you can kind of see like it's relatively sparse in certain areas. And then there's quite a bit in 2016, 17, and 18, right?
Okay. Could the Washington Post not have hired anybody better to make better graphs? That's a shit graph.
It is a shit graph.
I will not refer anyone to that. I cannot. Graph is something you're supposed to be able to look at and understand a trend from. That's like a bunch of infographic nonsense.
Yeah, that's right.
Go fuck yourself, Washington Post. Hire a fucking scientist.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus Christ. Oh, man.
But, we're running low on our time for the Rectable, so I'm going to end us on this study from
terrible graph.
National Public Radio.
Oh, okay.
Cats might not act like it, but they know their names as well as dogs, according to this study.
No. Did you know this, Destin?
Call a dog by its name and its tail wags. It starts panting happily and it showers you with love and affection. Call a cat by its name and, well, cats are a bit harder to read. Does the cat even know what its name is? Researchers in Japan set out to answer the question. Can a cat understand the difference between its name and any other random word that it sounds like? But researchers conducted a series of experiments in which a person would speak 4 different words and then say the cat's name. According to the study, the words chosen were nouns with the same length and accents as their own names. If the cat acted differently when it heard its name, the scientists would know that the cat distinguished its name from other words. The reason for saying 4 words was because it was before the name was to habituate the cats or get them accustomed to hearing words spoken. And I mean, ultimately, they kind of came out with the conclusion that it seems like cats understand their names.
We're discussing this instead of the school shooting stuff.
Well, we're running out of time, so it's something
science.
It's something interesting and entertaining to discuss.
In 1999, when Columbine happened, 36% of the population of the U.S. had internet at home. Wasn't uncommon.
But anyway, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I like to fact check shit.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't think that was how that particular news story was disseminated and focused on. I feel like people turned on cable news and watched it for hours.
Yeah,
that's how I remember.
That was,
but maybe my experience wasn't universal.
Even
I don't think anyone was watching news on their fucking computer that back then because it was super slow. It was slow to load a picture. Do you remember like slowly the picture coming down bar by bar? Like
even at that time, we were discussing. You could hear on the news people discussing the 24-hour news cycle and the impact it was having on these things. So
made for a 24-hour news cycle. But I like cats too.
Yes. So the study found one minor exception to cats recognizing their name. Cats that lived with other cats in a cat cafe. Those cats could distinguish their name from random nouns, but not from the names of other cats. Researchers often offered multiple possible explanations. Maybe different cafe customers called their names with different intonation, and maybe customers say a cat's name without offering a reward, so on and so forth. So it was neat. I think this is an interesting little study. I thought it was something fun.
I like it. I don't know.
I think it's super cool that cats actually do know what their names are.
I mean, they just want you to fuck off after you say it. You're just like,
that's right. They just
love
don't
you,
actually.
Mittens. Cat's like, fuck you.
Stop saying my name, goddammit.
I have 4 cats, and if I call one, it'll come sometimes.
Yeah.
But the other ones don't. So, yes, they can.
So one of them cares a little bit.
Well, no, whichever one I call.
Oh.
You must love cats so much. I like most of your cats, too. I don't think I dislike any of your cats.
Cats over dogs.
I like them both.
Fair enough. I like both, but not enough to have any because that takes work.
If I...
There's a guy that runs a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't have time for a
podcast. Yeah, not both. I do love how cats are way less work than a dog, but not when you have 4.
Yeah, that's still a lot.
When you have 1 cat, that's okay. Not 4.
It's less work if you have more than one.
It's just more hair, so it's more vacuuming.
More cleaning the litter box.
The same amount of times. You still clean it every day.
Yeah.
Yes, every day.
Oh, yeah, there's no cleaning anymore.
You might need multiple litter boxes if you have
Yes,
4 cats.
we have 4 litter boxes.
Right. So if you had 1 cat, one might have 1 litter box that one cleans once a day. I'm just describing the
If you
way
have
you're
more than one
stealing here.
cat, they need less of your attention.
Okay. But I
Otherwise-
like giving cat. That's the good part of having a cat.
No, if you have a cat, you have to give it attention.
Yes.
If you have more than one cat, you can give them attention.
Right. But I like giving cats. That's the point of having a cat.
Not if you have to do it every single day.
Oh,
Even
yes,
if you're
that's
sick, even
what
if you're
I
tired,
like.
you have to.
It's so easy. You're sick. They just
cat?
lay on you.
It's like having a dog.
No, but a dog you have to walk. A cat will just lay on you and purr. And that's fine. You're sick and then you're happy because the cat's purring on you. It makes me want a cat right now. I love when they purr on you and
We
they
have
need
different
you.
views of cats.
They need you. They're so nice.
All right, that's where we'll end the Brainstorm Rectable. All the relevant links will be in the show notes for patrons and live
Important
listeners.
things like cat names and
For patrons, we'll be back after this break. For regular feed subscribers,
This is why
thanks
you
for
should give us
joining
money.
us. Remember to check out next week's episode and stay tuned for an ad from one of our favorite podcasts and the outro. Hey folks, it's just Cory here, inserting a little bit at the end of this conversation. During this next ad break, before we go to the outro, I'm going to add in a song from Dave's new project, Femme Fragile. It's really good, and they don't have anything quite yet where you can find it to purchase or stream, but Dave said that you can follow them on Instagram, and their Insta is Femme Fragile Music. I'll include a link to that in the show notes, and it will be streaming available on May 3rd. So look for it on various streaming services on May 3rd. This is Femme Fragile, and the song is Save Yourself.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/Brainstorm Podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/Brainstorm Podcast Gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
Hearing whispers through the night. I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner. I'm proud to be an atheist.
What happens when you're an atheist living in the Canadian Bible Belt? If you're like me, you gather some friends and you take to the airwaves. So I invite you to come and join us every week to take a left to the valley and find out where you stand in this world. Follow us on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, or SoundCloud, or lefttothevalley.com. Atheist, skeptic, and humanist radio, no God required.
Faith in God is like a virus, so why would I respect it? The line between good and evil gets blurred once infected. The truth you neglected.
For all the things, you can check out the show notes at our website, brainstormblog.net, and our hosting page, thebrainstormpodcast.com. Thanks to our financial supporters, Magnus, Stephanie, Bob, Glenn, the Utah Outcasts, Zach, Kayla, Freethinker215, and H. Simpson support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Keith, Jesse, Peter, Kim, Larry, Driffa, Rob, Richard, Daryl, Aaron, Destin doesn't suck that much, and the Flying Spaghetti Monster, sauce be upon him. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. Or you can do a one-time donation at paypal.me/brainstormpodcast. Or go get t-shirts at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. Our next live show is planned for May 10th, and our guest will be Yvette D'Entremont, aka the Psy Babe. So stay tuned for that, and if you don't already follow her, then head over to her website, thepsybabe.com, to see what she's about. I want to give a special thanks to Tom Cory for joining us on the Skeptic Studio portion. You can find more of his stuff at dissonancepod.com. Thanks to Dave for intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabinowitz from Embrace the Void for doing the voiceover for intro. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Kepper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for the outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. What?
Just made noise.
What? I want to apologize for the lack of bonus content with the full crew lately. We always seem to run into some kind of roadblock, but we will do that eventually. More bonus content.
Keanu Reeves, 2020.
Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our subreddit, share the show, and spread the word. The more you share, comment, and like our stuff, the more it helps the show grow. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for listening, and remember, the truth matters.